All right, we are back with your favorite podcast show of the week. This is Location Weekly, and it's episode number 464. We're recording live on May the 12th. Brianna, how are you?
I am hanging in there. I'm pretty good, coming off of Mother's Day, felt celebrated. So I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's things are starting to ease up a little bit on the COVID restrictions. We're still stores aren't really open yet, or restaurants or anything, but they've allowed everything here that has a door that faces the street to allow for curbside pickup. So every store who qualifies for that can do that now. So that's a step in the right direction. Yeah, we're still waiting to hear about schools, whether those are going to reopen or not. Who knows?
Yeah.
So far things are looking a little bit better.
Yeah, they're slowly starting to open up stuff here in Georgia, and it's just weird. You just don't know what to feel about it, and then you don't even know how, I don't know. It's a lot of measured precaution, and I think that I think most people that I know will maybe go out to eat maybe here or there. They're doing social distancing, sitting at restaurants and stuff, but I still think the overall sentiment is just being very cautious. But I'm sure that's different in different places too. I would assume that the more rural it is, the more relaxed people are going to be and the more comfortable they'll be going out. But
yeah. Have they opened up public transit and all that yet?
I don't think so. I mean, Atlanta doesn't really have a whole lot of public transit, so I'm not sure that they ever even shut it down. But yeah, actually, I think that they did shut it down because I haven't seen any buses. Not that I go that many places. So I don't know. That's a great question. It's not really something that we think about here because it's not like the MARTA goes basically to the airport and maybe Georgia Tech. That's about it.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of places that you can ride that thing. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a great question though.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we've got a good show for you this week. We have three industry news stories to cover off and a guest as well in our Members at Home series. So I'll let Aubriana start us off.
All right. So we're starting it off with bananas. This is kind of a funny story to me.
Better than pizza.
Yeah. Well, at least it's a healthier option now, finally. Yeah. Do you guys eat bananas in your house?
Yep. We do.
My kids love bananas, and I make a lot of protein shakes with them.
Go through a lot of bananas, and banana bread. Make a lot of banana bread.
But did you? Oh yeah, I love banana bread. I try not to make too much of it though. But did you know that most, I think it's 58% of shoppers ages 18 to 39, who bought bananas the prior year, were more likely to buy them. Well, hang on. They tend to be more popular among older consumers, and now people who bought them before are even more likely to buy them. I guess the pandemic has boosted their consumption of bananas, but apparently bananas are more popular amongst the older generations, which I find very interesting. And I guess at the same time, Spotify has seen a decrease in audio streaming. I guess people aren't in the car as often. They're not going to the gym. So they're streaming a lot less music. So they said 12% decrease globally and 16% decrease in the States. So these two have teamed up. Well, I mean, Spotify is obviously a customer Chiquita is obviously a customer of Spotify, but they're doing this really cool thing called the Golden Banana. And so the Chiquita bananas have these stickers on them, and you can actually scan the codes to say they can get unlocked games and playlists, all these different playlists that they're having. So each banana does something different, and they did a new jingle, a remix of their old jingle, the old Spotify jingle, which I have no idea what that is. Do you know what that is?
No, but I'll look it up while you're talking.
Okay, see if you can find it.
Is it a Spotify jingle or a Chiquita jingle?
Chiquita jingle is a 1950s jingle.
Okay.
And so they have the 5 different playlists, different themes feel happy, smile workout, classics, tropical vibes. That makes sense with the banana theme, right? And then fans can win like branded prizes, like loudspeakers and subscriptions to Spotify Premium. So I guess this is like a good way for obviously Spotify to maybe drive more traffic to people who buy bananas and maybe to an older demographic as well. And it's an opportunity for Chiquita just to let people have some fun and unlock things and drive more traffic back to Spotify. So it's cute. I mean, it's not anything like mind blowing or wow,
Yeah.
but I like it. It's
Yeah, I
not
like it.
math for burgers.
Yeah, I think it's kind of fun. I found the original jingle, so let's see if we can get this to go.
All right.
Hello, amigos. I'm Chiquita Banana, and I've come to say banana
Yes.
is spreading in a certain way. When the blessing is brown and never folded you, bananas taste the best and are the best for you.
All right, we got it.
Yeah, now I remember it was like the drawing of the woman with the banana skirt on, and she would kind of dance.
Right. Right.
Yes.
So there you go. So that is that's the original jingle, and then there was a newer one done in, let's see here.
Yeah, they were remixing it.
Hello, amigos. Chiquita Banana, and I've come to say I offer good nutrition in a simple way.
All right, there you go. Anyways,
I mean, couldn't they have gotten like Cardi B or something to do that? I mean, that would have been
maybe, yeah.
a little bit more spicy and fun.
Yeah, so I like this. I mean, obviously, sort of, as they said, like, sort of people aren't using Spotify as much right now. But what I like about this is the sort of physical digital mashup, right? Yeah, people are going to grocery stores. It's an essential service. They're buying more bananas right now. So why not, use that as a sort of, entry point, to sort of engage people with your service. I mean, Amazon is, going crazy right now in terms of orders and whatnot. Netflix is on the rise, so I think if you're Spotify, you need to find ways to sort of engage, and I think this sort of getting people with physical items that can then drive traffic to your subscription service makes sense. So I like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have these things. I have to go see now. Well, actually, I have to go to the grocery store this afternoon. So I'll see if we have Chiquita bananas in Canada with these things on. I don't know.
Yeah, we just got some bananas, so I'm going to check them out and see if they have the special stickers on them.
There you go.
All right.
So I'll jump over now to our members at home special guest for this week. And his name is Tanner Gatlin. He is a senior live content creator for the NFL Media Group. So he's basically producing content, video, and social content for the National Football League. He happens to, his primary gig is working for the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously the current Super Bowl champion. So it was quite a year for him and his crew. But an interesting one right now in this current time where you can't really do anything in terms of creating content with athletes or those kinds of things in the same way, interviews and such. So it's been a new experience for him. Had a good chat with him this week. And so here he is, Tanner Gatlin, senior live content creator for NFL Media. All right, I am very excited this week because we have a great guest with us. His name is Tanner Gatlin. Just had a birthday, and he is a senior live content creator for NFL Media, the National Football League. So, Tanner, how are you? Welcome.
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's exciting to do this, but it's in different terms. But yeah, it's exciting to do this podcast with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you again. Normally we see you at like live events, conferences that we put on, but this is a different way to do it. What's it been like for you? I mean, obviously working in the NFL media, division and stuff, you're there, you're on the field, you're creating content, on the sidelines, all of that. What's it been like working from home, first of all, for you? Is that a whole new experience?
Yes.
An adjustment?
Yeah. It has been. Yeah, it has been. So seeing how I'm in Kansas City and I work mostly alongside the Chiefs, but do work with some other teams as well. But seeing that they had just come off the Super Bowl win this past season. And we had many planned productions, many planned events celebrating that. We did have the parade here in Kansas City, but shortly after, a few months later, things kind of went at a standstill with marketing, with events with the players, with press releases. And so a lot of halting events that I was planning to shoot or create content for, or help do with sponsorships, got canceled because of the coronavirus, and that impacting the marketing and all the push for celebrating this new, it had been 50 years since the Chiefs had won. So put that on a halt. And I mean, all sports have been put to a halt, which has been quite crazy. And I'd seen a lot of creators and a lot of my colleagues reaching out saying, I mean, what do we do now? There's been a funny meme going around of a sports photographer taking a picture of his TV of an old sports game. And he's saying how he's missing it. So it's definitely a new time of sports, and seeing how they're going to revamp sports back up once these restrictions release.
Yeah, I think very interesting. First of all, and congrats again on the win. Do you get a ring, or what happens there?
I don't get a ring, unfortunately, because I work for the league. I don't work for the Chiefs.
Right.
So if I did work for the Chiefs, then I would get a ring. But unfortunately, I don't.
All right. Well, you got to be there anyway, so that's good. So as a fan, I would say it's a very interesting time. Like there's really, every league shut down. I find myself, watching reruns of, up here, the Toronto Blue Jays World Series games, or the bat flip game with Batista, back a couple years ago. And even the Raptors, victory, replayed over and over again, because technically we're still the champions because there's no season right now. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But yeah, it's really interesting because there's just no new content. What's your view of just opinion? I know you can't say anything official, but UFC coming back the way that they did.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that. I read a few articles about that, and they had said they did some strenuous preparations for that, of cleaning and sanitizing. It's interesting. I mean, there were no fans in the stands, just a few press people, but there had been talks with the NFL about how we would come back and how would we bring back that experience, and if we were allowed in the restrictions to bring fans in, or what that would look like. And so they just released the NFL schedule, a couple weeks ago. And they released it early. But it's interesting to see what is it going to look like. There's been talks about doing, the Dolphins president talked about doing just 15,000 fans and separating people 6 feet apart, and then having people leave the stadium do row by row, and where it's not a mass crowd leaving. So there's definitely been talks of figuring out how to adapt to this new restrictions, but it also varies state by state on what restrictions, because each law is kind of different. So it'll be interesting to see. I think there will be very limited media access and very limited interaction with the players. You won't see reporters most likely really close to the players. I doubt there'll probably be any interviews. So it'll be interesting to see how there's adaptive with the media, but also with the fans, and how they'll be allowing fans to come into the stadiums or just being viewing on TV.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And I mean, and at this point, I don't think anybody really knows, right? Like it's all sort of, wishful thinking and plans and hopes for the best. But for you working at home in this new capacity, has there been any new tools? I've been asking people, like, what new kind of technology tools for staying in contact or getting work done are you using that you weren't using before?
Yeah. So with the NFL, we use Slack to communicate. It seems very fast and efficient. Very, very well-known platform. And then we use Zoom as well to do conference calls, kind of catch up on what's going on. So they really haven't adapted to any new technologies. Things I've kind of seen is you can use Alexa, the home devices that you see, using it for a conference call, which I thought was innovative. And they've partnered with Cisco, WebEx, Zoom, and Skype. So I thought that was kind of neat. But yeah, the NFL, you mostly use Slack, email, and Zoom.
Very cool. Alexa sounds interesting. That's the first I've heard somebody doing that, at a corporate level. So yeah, very interesting. So let's assume season comes back in some form or fashion. I think a lot of leagues are saying, with empty stadiums, no fans there. How do you see that playing out in terms of your role? I mean, you said probably no interviews, but in terms of creating content and getting that content out to fans, how do you see that potentially happening?
Yeah, I had a friend. And he was one of out of one of there we go one out of the 20 photographers that were there at the UFC fight that happened a few days ago, and his images went to many outlets and to the wire, and so seeing how there's only select media there, the media you do create or capture, it's going to be very dispersed out, and a lot of people will use it because there's very limited media rather than there's usually, hundreds of media people there. So it'll be unique to see that there'll be very limited pictures and videos and content to use because there'll be very limited media be able to be out there. So with that, what would that look like? It was interesting. The NFL draft was broadcasted across NFL Network, ESPN, ABC, and all of the digital channels. So to see something go out that big and that mass scale across multiple networks was interesting. You usually don't see that. Usually signs with one deal. So it's companies are adapting to sponsorships and losing sponsorships and how to gain more attention. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. National coverage, and so how that will change the local network because they're going to want the bigger networks.
Yeah, no, I think sort of content distribution is an interesting thing, as you said. Like I think there's so much hunger, pent up demand right now from the sports fan in general across all leagues and all sports, with just no live content happening. So I think whatever little bit comes out is going to get sucked up. And I think I read an article on the weekend about the UFC thing saying the fan base that sort of consume that content is not their normal fan base that they would normally have for UFC. So all of a sudden, in a way, you're drawing potentially new fans to a sport that maybe they weren't interested in because it's the only thing on, and so I think it's interesting times to sort of see what that impact will be. You mentioned something to me before we started this interview about, in Germany, I believe it was, something that they're looking to try in the stands there. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I read an article about how marketing ideas and experiences that fans can experience other than, they've been refunded their tickets here in America with the sports. So how can they provide the fans another experience? So one way that a German soccer club did was they allowed fans to pay $20 to have an image of them placed on a cutout and then placed in the stands. And they had 12,000 cutouts placed for order. So it's interesting to see how you're there to experience it, and they send you a picture of the cutout and where it's placed, so you kind of have, but I'm maybe not in the stands, but I contributed and I showed my support. So I think it's an interesting way for a new experience and a new idea of how we can introduce the fans to still be maybe not in the stadium fully, but putting a part of their appreciation in there.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's as I said to you earlier, like I hope that for seasons ticket holders and things like that, they find ways to still have them have their be in their virtually or in cutout form or whatever. I wonder though, like for the athletes that are on the field playing the sport, I wonder, like, are they looking to recreate the sort of the noise of the stadium with everybody in there yelling and screaming and all those kinds of things as well? Because that's got to be a big part of what drives them, right? Like to perform.
Yeah, it's so the Chief Stadium. It's one of the loudest stadiums in the world. It set a Guinness World Record. And so when teams would prepare to come to the Chief Stadium, their practice facilities, they would have the sound of their sound system and the practice facilities turned up really high, so they can experience what it'd be like to play in the Chief Stadium. They would go practice. They practice the facility with really loud noise of fans cheering. So they'd be prepared of the coaches aren't going to be able to yell to the players, hey, play this, do this play. So they're prepared of doing hand signals or looking over at this time. So they were prepared for that. So I wonder what that'll look like if we don't play without fans. There's not going to be any audio in the stadium, and there won't be necessarily an announcer, but there'll be a TV announcer. So it'll be different, and it would be dead quiet. So how are the players going to play differently? But would there necessarily be a disadvantage and a home advantage if you didn't have fans in the stadiums? So there's definitely things that the NFL is looking at, and the league is looking at, and the teams are looking at, see what that would be like.
Yeah. Last question for you. So, like, thinking now from the Location-Based Marketing Association perspective, are you, let's go back to content for a second, to finish this off. Like, are you thinking about, okay, people can't, let's say the games are going to resume, but there'll be no fans there, so people aren't coming into the stadiums. How do we reach out to wherever the Chiefs fans are from a geo perspective, wherever they are, like, at home, at bars that they maybe, or restaurants that they can still hang out in potentially, or wherever, like, how do we, sort of take the package to them in wherever place they're at, because they can't come to us.
Right. Yeah, most certainly. One of the things would be, social media targeting, and targeting that aspect, and using, I think, one thing that we did during when in playoffs and in the Super Bowl, one thing we did was send content creators to bars, and so we would have people go to. So using that content that was at that bar, shooting it, and then sending it to the social media team of the Chiefs saying, hey, they cheered at this touchdown. Here's a video for you guys, or a picture. And they would post saying, thank you for cheering at this bar. And so you'd get that at that specific bar. And then for the Super Bowl, we did that all across.
That's awesome. Love it. Yeah, no, super, super cool. Well, that's all the time we've got for this week. So I want to first of all just thank Tanner for taking time out of his busy schedule, and again for our audience, we've been chatting with Tanner Gatlin. He's a senior live content creator for the NFL Media Group, and just thanks, man. Stay safe and healthy where you are there, and hopefully there's a season for you.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully things shake up, but yeah, thank you for the time. I enjoyed it.
All right, take care. Thanks, Tanner. Really appreciate you coming on, and hope that the season starts as planned, and that you can get back to doing what you do really well and creating great content that we can all kind of take advantage of. So there you go. All right. So kind of sticking with creating great experiences and great brands, moving over to Coors Light now and beer, there's an interesting campaign that's happening called "Could You Use a Beer?" In fact, hashtag "Could You Use a Beer?" Created by DDB Chicago. There's basically a commercial running, voiced by Paul Giamatti, and you can basically identify people and create content on social media with this hashtag, flagging people that you know that could really use a beer. And so what'll happen is if you get selected, then Coors Light will cover the cost of a 6-pack for someone you know, and so we get that delivered to them. And it was all started by an ad that was inspired by a 93-year-old Olive Veronosi, who's a Pittsburgh area resident. She drew headlines earlier this month after holding up a photo of her staring out her window, basically using a dry erase board, like holding up this board saying, "I need more beer," while she was holding on to a bottle of Coors Light. And so they saw this and they're like, okay, we can create something around this. And they did. So I think it's super fun and interesting. So basically, you jump on Twitter, tag friends who deserve a 6-pack, and you tag Coors Light with the hashtag "Could you use a beer?" And then you basically go out and buy the 6-pack and then get it to them. But then you can submit your receipt and get reimbursed via PayPal, from Coors Light directly. So very cool, very interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a neat way to kind of leverage content that's already been put out there that's gone viral with this woman, and to kind of really sort of keep the brand front and center. What are your thoughts?
I like it. I think it's so fun. And I love that they used like an elderly woman as their inspiration for this. I think it's so fun. And I'm just thinking of all the ways that I'm going to get myself a 6-pack,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should just videotape my kids like busting in on our podcast 25 times.
There you go. There you go. That's an idea.
No, yeah, this is good. I like it. It's fun. And I think that people need fun right now. And honestly, like I had been watching a guy that I know that does, he's CEO of a company called Playbook Media. And he had put together, I don't know if it was him that put it together, but he had shared basically every commercial that you see out there right now is the same. And it's like, we're all in this together. We're all home, like melodic music that's kind of like tranquil in the background. Like everything is exactly the same. And I just think that the winners right now are those that are coming out and not being insensitive, but just doing something different. So this to me is different and it's fun. It's not insensitive. And I think that like, to me, that's winning. It's, standing out amongst the exact same thing that's going on. So
yeah, no, very, very cool. Let me see if I can make this work. I'm going to attempt to pull up the image of this woman. See if this is. How's that? Can you see that?
Yeah.
There she is. Oliver Nasi, 93 years old, needs more beer. I love it.
That's awesome.
All right. Very
Final
cool.
story.
Final story. What are you?
It's more of an announcement, but not too long ago we had talked about how it's a Media and Games Invest, or MGI Group, had acquired Verve, which we had heard wasn't doing very well. They hadn't been doing very much for a while, and so they acquired them, brought them in, and thought like, hey, we can use this and blend it with a lot of the other brands and divisions of MGI Group that we have. And what's interesting from this is now they have actually joined Aplift and Pub Native, two of their other companies within the investment group and within the Invest Group, to create Verve Group. So to me, that was an interesting play because I felt like maybe I don't know, I'm curious to the reasoning behind it, but I guess that maybe the Verve brand had more recognition or, resonated better than the other two, but you know, I had always heard very positive things about the work that PubNative and Uplift were doing. So just in case you're not familiar, PubNative is a global mobile ad exchange, and then Uplift is the mobile growth performance marketing expert. So obviously focused on, you know, growing app download and monetization. So all of the companies are going to be unified under the Verve Group brand, and it will still be led by you know, some of the same players that have been there. They mentioned a few of them that have had extensive you know, 20+ year industry experts that have been at several different companies. And one thing that they did note that I thought was interesting is that even with the COVID-19 crisis, their revenues, obviously the entire industry, you know, anything in the advertising industry, the revenues have been under fire and just not doing very well. But the Verve Group is relatively well off because they're focused on performance marketing, brand performance, and then especially in the gaming and e-commerce. So obviously gaming has taken off. Actually, we just ran a study at Gather about how, you know, gaming is not really surprising, but like gaming app downloads have just crazy accelerated during this time. So I think with that, you know, with a focus in gaming, they obviously are going to be seeing continuous revenue there. And because of their global footprint, they're probably a little less affected. So yeah, I think it's good. It makes sense that they sort of have like this trifecta going on of all of the different things that they're offering between, you know, app performance, ad exchange, and then Verve with the location aspect. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add to this. I think it's a natural progression for them, as you know, these things were already part of, you know, earlier acquisitions, but putting them under one banner, you know, and I guess for me, like the only comment I have on it is that as we've talked about in recent weeks, you know, there's a lot of consolidation going on in the industry. You know, we talked about obviously Foursquare, you know, with you know, Placed and Factual. We talked about Place IQ acquisition, and now you see sort of another big player in our industry here, sort of bringing, you know, sort of these different entities under one banner, and you know, maybe that sort of you know, size and numbers and you know, positioning that from a brand that has a big portfolio, you know, altogether starts to make sense, right? And I think you're gonna, as we said earlier, I think you're gonna see more and more of this kind of consolidation. I think we'll see more acquisitions over the course of the summer announced, as you know, some companies won't emerge from COVID, unfortunately, you know, and I think that creates opportunity for others as well. So yeah, that's it. That's our show for this week. So 3 interesting stories there, some cool campaigns, and a great guest in Tanner Gatlin. We thank you for listening and watching every week. This has been episode 464 of Location Weekly. Of course, if you have story ideas, if you have people we should be interviewing, you know, to come on the show, please reach out to us. We're easily found on all the social channels, and that information's at the end of the show anyways. So yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great week. Stay healthy and safe and all that, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.